Thank you for watching this video. Look, I'll be answering my emails very soon. I receive a lot of them, so be patient. I've downloaded the Outlook app on my mobile phone, as you can see here, so I'll be able to receive them directly. It may take time for me to answer your emails, so be patient. And many emails, I won't be able to answer them directly through text, but I will record videos that relate to the questions and the subjects that people message me about. Okay, now that I've mentioned that, let's go to the subject of this video. And I'll begin with a parable, as I often do. Let's say it's the 1500s, okay? And you have this one ship. There's a captain and a crew, and this ship comes from Denmark, okay? And they are in what you can call the New World, as they mentioned, call it back then. And they arrive at this group of islands, this small group of islands in South America. Now, the Danish captain set a camp on one of the islands, and his crew remained on that one island. They built that camp. There were some locals that assisted them. They taught the locals a bit of Danish, and that was it. Then one of the sailors asked the captain, why don't we venture those other islands that are around, to just within a day's reach? And the sailor also told the captain, the natives told me that we're close to the mainland of South America, and there's a lot of land available, farmland, maybe even mines, within just 3 days ahead, sailing towards the south. The Danish captain told him, I'm not interested. The rest of us also told him, we're not interested. We're fine here, we're at ease here. Okay, another ship came. This one came from Portugal. And this ship had some criminals that fled from Portugal. They arrived at the same group of islands. They saw the Danish flag, so they knew it was a Danish ship. These men had no map. They just followed wind directions over there, and they stopped over there. And one of the natives who understood Portuguese, because Portuguese men came by often over there, told those criminals that there's a lot of land available just 4 days sailing towards the south. But what happened? Those those criminals, let's say there were 20 of them on that ship. They were not criminals that committed murder, nor rape or anything like that. They were just burglars, okay? Not that burgling is fine, but that's what they were. They knew that sailing back to Portugal was not an option because he would end up in jail. And their relatives would sell them out to the authorities to get validation of society. So they knew they made a step to cross the ocean, now they need to continue. They sailed on to mainland. And indeed, there was a lot of land. There was even a mountainous landscape out there. Those criminals took 3 months at a time to venture in that region. Within those 3 months, they got to know the native tribes. The native tribes informed them about the rivers, the lakes, so they drew a small map of the region. Okay? Now that Danish captain returned to Denmark. When he arrived in Denmark, his superiors wanted him to return because they wanted to establish a Danish settlement in South America. Now, about half a year later, there were 2 Danish ships. That captain on one of the ships and another captain on the other. or even Danish troops on those ships. They arrived at a group of islands and even headed towards the mainland. But when they arrived over there was already a Portuguese village established, and many of the natives were involved in the economy of that village. That village was located at the coast, so it was like a small maritime port, with just a small pier, but it was already active. So when the Danish arrived with their 2 ships, they thought they're coming there and they're going to just establish themselves. Well, it didn't work that way. Why not? The Portuguese criminals who were really refugees that fled Portugal, they were far smarter than the Danish in this case. There was this one Danish sailor that told his superior, "Sir, it might be a good idea to check mainland before we can return to Denmark." But because the captain nor the rest of the crew was interested, they considered it was important. They were wrong. Those Portuguese refugees, man, they looked beyond. They evaluated the situation. They mapped the situation. So they made use of it. So when the Danish were there, building their small village, they built the village, but economically it did not become prosperous. 2 years passed by, and there was traffic between Denmark and that place. But the traffic cost Denmark more than it provided. So that Danish village was abandoned and forgot about. And when the Danish left, those same Portuguese refugees who were now like the local elites there, they took over a Danish town, made it a Portuguese town, and they extended the trade of the region. Now, this is a parable, as you understand. In this parable, those Portuguese criminals were far wiser than that Danish captain. That Danish captain relied on his title and on his credentials that he received in Denmark. So when that sailor, who didn't have any title at all, proposed on them, "Sir, we may want to check mainland before we cross the ocean back to Denmark," he considered it null. He considered the recommendation of that simple sailor as nothing, because he didn't have the titles. He didn't went through the same initiations as a captain went through. He didn't have years of experience on the seas. So that captain thought, "What can this small sailor tell me?" But here's the thing, that small sailor never crossed the ocean before, that's true. But he did sail a lot on rivers. Now you may say, well, that's not the same. Nevertheless, he learned by experience that it is smart to check your environment, to see the potential in your environment, and not only to see the difficulties that you face, but also to look beyond. Well, those Portuguese refugees, those criminals that fled Portugal, they knew very well they had to look beyond. Because if they didn't look beyond, other criminals would target them and they would be dead, or their own relatives would betray them. Well, those Portuguese refugees, they knew how to deal with unfamiliar situations. They dealt with unfamiliar situations by looking at the whole situation, by evaluating the situation, and then to see what their involvement is in the situation and how they could use the involvement for long-term good. While that Danish captain and that Danish crew, with one exception, they were only into their own relief. They came there, they found a group of islands. That's what they were sent to do, just find a group of islands that Denmark would occupy, and that was it. They had no interest in anything whatsoever. They were stuck within their own interest, and then being stuck within their own interest caused them to miss out on much potential. Those criminals who never crossed the ocean before, man, they exceeded that Danish captain and a Danish crew that crossed the Atlantic from Denmark to North America, multiple times. So, how does this relate to you, this parable? Are you like the Danish captain, relying on your own understanding, closing off your interest, only be sent around your own relief? Are you like that? If you're like that, you may achieve something, but whatever you achieve will be short-lived. If you're like that one sailor, or like those Portuguese criminals, and you've learned to not relate everything to yourself directly, but to look beyond and to see yourself as part of a bigger whole, and to evaluate the bigger whole, if that's you, you'll get far further than most people. Because most people are only centered around their own relief. That's why they never get ahead. That's why they're stuck in a pattern and a downward spiral. That's why curses keep haunting them. That's why they'll never get delivered. That's why they pray year in, year out, read the Bible all the time and all of that, but there's no change for the better because of their narcissistic attitude. I'm not saying they're narcissists, they're not narcissists, but they have a narcissistic attitude. And that narcissistic attitude enables Satan to keep them trapped. I'm telling you. Well, what I'm teaching you here is to be like a colonial adventurer. Okay? Be like a colonial adventurer. Someone that has to the new world, that hasn't been mapped out completely yet, and they are open to what they will find. They are realistic and practical. They didn't just get into a ship and they just follow the winds. No. They have a direction they're going into, and they head into that direction. Meanwhile, they remain open and alert to what's around them. And when they see something, they document it so that they can evaluate it later on. Be like a colonial adventurer. Don't have this settled attitude like the Danish captain. That's what a lot of people are looking for. A lot of people want to develop a settled attitude once they get enough validation by society, once things are at ease. Don't be like that. I made a video a few days ago in which I've told you to have the mindset of a cold case detective, to use that type of thinking when evaluating circumstances and also when reading the Bible. Now I'm telling you to be like a colonial adventurer. Because there were colonial adventurers that went to the Americas and they established towns. Some of those towns into big cities. Some of those big cities are still in existence today. Others built plantations and they had businesses they had developed businesses. Some of them returned to Europe and now they had a business overseas. Or some the other way around. But anyway, there were a lot of people active in the colonial era and they reached stuff. And it was quite difficult back then because you had pirates. Those were the terrorists of the day, pirates that would haunt ships. You had privateers in the name of some king or some local prince that attacked ships also. And well, you had the Spanish Navy and also the French Navy. You had those big navies that were also corrupt, so it was difficult, okay? Yet people lived and people ventured out. And today, you have folks, you don't respond to their WhatsApp message within an hour and already throw you away. They already block you, they want anything to do with you anymore. While in the colonial eras, it would take weeks before you got an answer from someone, if you would got an answer at all, and yet people maintained contact with their relatives or with friends, yet they went out to meet new people and they lived life. Look, when I evaluate the people in the colonial times that were active, that went out and ventured out, and I would look at the attitude of modern people today with their smartphones, I tend to be shocked that we went from activity to passivity like this. Because I call this passivity. There's nothing wrong with this, using this as a tool. But when you become codependent on this, and this becomes your escape, well, there's something to be said about. Be like a colonial adventurer, and today you can use this to venture out. You can use this instant communication to reach out. You can use this to amplify your reach. Agree with Christ.